Elaan of Troyius. Now that I haven't rewatched it, uh, I I'm thinking this should be on the list as one of the best episodes of Star Trek, and that it encompasses a lot of elements of Star Trek. Not all, but damn near in a lot of ways. It has the seriousness nature of the intergalactic geopolitics that Star Trek is known for, and the metaphors that's obvious what it's trying to do there about who's who and what's what, about great powers manipulating smaller ones and all this sort of stuff. And of course, sci-fi concepts and whatnot that they deal with. The relationships, somewhat you get more insight into Captain Kirk. It's just kind of a reaffirmation of what he's about in it, and also you get a lot of comedy. And one wonders, was it intentional? Hey, it works. And all that stuff. And of course, all the great things of a nod to old myth and stuff like that, and all of that. And this is a really good episode, and the performances are good as well. So right off the bat, you have this political business and a diplomatic hand that the Federation is putting the Enterprise into, in which they're trying to help these two warring factions. You've got two planets that, because this was one, I'm not sure that they have full warp capability or what have you, but they're certainly aware. So I always wondered, but they said, oh, don't make contact with societies that don't have warp capability, but they had other means of space travel that might take longer, but they would come in contact with other societies, and it says, well, the secret's out. But basically, here's two planets, Elos and Troyius, that have been at war with each other, and a nod back to ancient customs. They decided to marry off their royalty to one another in the hopes that that'll bring them together and end the war. So that's the deal. So the Federation is going to transport the Dolman, they call her, is sort of this princess, to be married off to one of the Troyius princes. You know, that's how it's going to work. Of course, the title Elaan of Troyius is a harken back to Helen of Troy, and the face that launched 1,000 ships and all this sort of thing. Well, but it's more or less in the title overall. Of course, Helen was kidnapped and brought to Troy and all this stuff. But anyway, of course, you can't. It's like the gods manipulated that war, and well, here's the Federation and the Klingons. So of course, it also plays into the Cold War of Star Trek between the Federation and the Klingons, and that's represented here. And what are the Klingons up to? And eventually, you find out why the planet of Troyes is so valuable and what their interest is in this. So that's cool stuff and all of that. But then the mythological comes into it, which we find out that there was this fairy tale that Nurse Chapel, because Elaan is just awful. She's this spoiled, rich bitch princess. And she'll cry if she wants to because it's her party and all that stuff, which I guess by today's standards, that means you hate all women. It's a horrible anti-woman thing. It's one character. It's who she is, and these personalities do exist. It's not a blanket statement overall, but that's the stupidity of today's lenses. But anyway, so she comes in and she's just awful and she's nasty and all this stuff, and the Troyan ambassador, he's supposed to teach her their ways so that she's ready for the wedding, and all that. She doesn't want to do it, but we learn what the fairy tale is. Nurse Chapel says, why would anyone want to marry her? He says, you're not getting along with her or anything. And he says, well, the women of Elos, they have this special power in their tears, and that if a male touches those tears, he's enslaved to her for life, and he loves her, and there's nothing he can do about it. And turns out that's true. So of course, guess what's gonna happen? Yeah. So she damn near kills the ambassador, and he's had it. He's not, he doesn't want anything to do with her. And so now it's up to Kirk to make this happen. And of course, she's not interested. She's mad at him. She doesn't want to be told what to do and all this sort of stuff, and he's not putting up with it. And she's like, "Ooh," you know. Well, of course, the fact that he's standing up to her, there's it's unspoken, but she's starting to respect that. And ultimately, she does break down, and you think, oh, she's manipulating him with that, and thought that that was the evil thing, and perhaps she was, but she brings herself to tears, and if she's doing it just to ensnare him, yeah, perhaps. But in the end, it kind of backfires on her. but nevertheless, it seems genuine that she says, why can't people like me? And she's frustrated with that, but it's, she's her own worst enemy. And that just makes her even more irritable and upset. But no one really likes her, and it's just her medical tears that makes men fall in love with her. And so it's a kind of a bad situation. And he says, well, he kind of feels sorry for her, but then he touches the tear, and and so Kirk does what he always does. Had she been nicer, he probably would have done it anyway. Well, it clearly insinuated in between scenes they have sex. And now you could argue that she was doing this deliberately to get power over him and everything, but in the end she falls in love with him too. So and she doesn't want to leave, and she's like, you could just take the ship, it's so powerful, and we could rule and all this sort of stuff. She just wants to run away with her new boyfriend. And well, Kirk can't, and this is playing into the character of Kirk. He's clearly completely enchanted by the tear and everything, and that's why over time, maybe she fell in love with Kirk, naturally, but he's manipulated by this, hormonal chemical, aspect of her species that's affected him. But ultimately, the main thing that it reaffirms, what is it about Kirk, what drives him. Of course, sexy women do, but his first and foremost true love that he'll never want to leave is the Enterprise. And that plays out later in the movies as well, even when the Enterprise is ultimately sacrificed, all that. And it represents him of where he is and what is meaningful, even though the later, his send-off in not First Contact, Generations is really bad. And we'll get there. But there's only one statement in it where he warns Picard to never give up the captain's seat, because at least when you're there, you're worth something. You're making a difference. So the movies deal with him dealing with aging and all that sort of stuff, and the depression that he suffers from it. But it's all about what's his true love. It's the Enterprise, and then they maybe it's a little too forced, the lines between Spock and McCoy, because McCoy comes up with an antidote for it, for the love potion and the tears, but it didn't matter, because Kirk's the grip of the Enterprise on Kirk is too powerful, and in the end, no woman can take that away, and that's where he wants to be, and it wins out. So. Yeah, there is, though. It's just a matter of willpower, and you can escape the curse of the tear. But anyway, so then it kind of ends on a sad note. It's like, because she really does have feelings for Kirk, and she'd rather be with him, but she's got to go for the purpose, and she grows up. It's all about she's terrified of adulthood, which is a common problem to this very day, and we're experiencing that a lot. And that's what she's trying to avoid, but she has responsibilities and duties. There's a war at stake here, and she grows up, she matures, and she accepts her responsibilities, and she's going to go do this. But it's sad, because she doesn't really love the man. She's now met someone that she really does genuinely love, and it's all very sad, but that's the way the world goes, or the universe in this case. And that's how that ends. The other aspects, of course, is all the big secret. Why were they Klingons so interested in? It turns out they got a lot of dilithium crystals just laying around. They don't use them. So they're all nuclear, atomic powered based societies and all that. And they haven't quite gotten there. But like I said before, they must, just by the means of their own mechanisms of travel, they've encountered alien life. And so I guess the Prime Directive doesn't really apply. Of course, that's what the Klingons were interested in. They didn't want this marriage to go forward because they could manipulate the war to their advantage. All this type of stuff. And that plays into the metaphor of the Cold War that existed at its time. And it's all very good stuff. And a lot of the stuff of Kirk trying to fight the urges is pretty funny. Even though it's supposed to be serious and stuff, it is like Spock and McCoy catch him in the act. He's all embarrassed. But it's all very good. And the performance, and this was Frances Wynn, who went on to play a doctor in St. Elsewhere and stuff like that. She does very good at this. She's complete this, just really, I mean, she's beautiful and all that stuff, but at the same time, she's just so nasty. And then it's like, oh, the Klingons have a spy in her little Praetorian guard she's got there, and she's like, and he gets caught, and he ends up killing himself rather than revealing the secret and all that. It turns out there's a bomb on there and all this sort of thing. But she's like, oh yeah, he's always loved me. And she's just like, she doesn't care. I guess she cried on him too at one point, throwing a fit. And he's trying to prevent the wedding as well, and so, but it's just that sort of dismissive thing. But she's been in her position of power, and she a privileged position, princess, and all that sort of stuff. And then she meets a man like Kirk, who's his own man, and it's like, well, she's never encountered a man like that before, he could lead to that this is what intrigued her. You take away the love potion, would their relationship have lasted? Nah, probably not. But there'd be a romance there for a little while anyway. But the costumes are exaggerated and stuff, but what the hell, it's outer space. How do you know? It's probably some of the closest outfits, certainly her guard and stuff, that look like Flash Gordon characters. But this is a good episode. I really like it, and it's not. I don't know that I always see it mentioned as one of the best. It's not going to measure up to City on the Edge of Forever or stuff like that. But all around, a very good show. Even though season 3 is looked upon as the weakest of the 3, I don't know that I agree with that anymore. Watching this for the purposes of a critical eye, this is one of the really good episodes of classic Star Trek. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr. Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness, so many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.